Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to kind of take a break from our average regular episodes because today we have finally made 10 episodes in my Who's Who world. So we're going to kind of do a world tour. So we'll kind of jump in. We'll kind of start where I started and we'll go from there. Show off some of the builds that I've done in preparation for the future and just to kind of have a point to look back at and see where I started. So let's jump on in. I've got some cinematic shots that should look really good, and we'll look at some of the builds. So for starters, in any Minecraft world, you need a place to store your blocks. So I created this storage silo that I had copied loosely from an image that I found online. It was modeled for a beekeeper to have a bee farm inside, but I modified it and changed some of the interior for those barrels, which means I do have a lot of friends showing up, pulling on those barrels and opening them up. But it's kind of nice to have people visit, but can be annoying. And then as you saw on the top, lightning rods were added around that time, so I put that on because it's all made of wood. And then I put buttons on top to give the roof a little texture, but also to keep skeletons and things from spawning on my roof. Now, after you have a place to keep all your stuff, you'll also need a place to keep yourself safe at night. So I created this little starter home here where I have a place to sleep, made it cozy with a nice little campfire, and I started experimenting with different build techniques like creating these cobblestone walls on that front wall design to make it look a little more 3D. And then of course I added a few extra doors so I could move to and from different buildings quickly and leave my bed and go on an adventure. But before you can leave for an adventure, you've got to take food with you. So I started with this little cute farmhouse design. I modeled it after a hay bale for that roof, and I kept my chickens, cows, and sheep outside alongside with some composters in case any villager friends showed up. They could till the land, and had all the crops hanging out outside. Inside we have a little prep area along with maybe some pictures of whoever owns this house or this farmhouse, maybe some heritage, some different plant decorations. And then when I realized at this point in the game, started experimenting with different decorations, but I wanted to set the goal to have every single house to have a bed inside. So that way wherever I was at, whatever projects I was doing, I could quickly sleep and make it daytime without really having the need to carry a bed around. And then upstairs, it's partially unfinished, but that's kind of the point with this build. I left some barrels and some storage. Some villagers somehow got lost up here. It's also where I keep my cocoa bean farm. And in addition to being useful and pretty on the outside, it's also functional on the inside. Over here on the side of this farm, I have a little secret entryway down into the basement, where as I come down in, you'll see I have a wool farm where I have access to most of the colors of wool that I will need. I do plan on going back in here, sprucing it up and adding all the different sheep here. But I have a little barrel, a crafting table for when I'm going to make those banners or beds or things like that. And as my city began to grow, I also created this fountain as sort of a centerpiece around these different builds. Underneath it, I have a villager breeder where the villagers actually spawn, are duplicated, and then they come up into the fountain. So it makes it kind of seamless, but now there's a town square in the middle of my little city that I was creating. For this next build, I took some inspiration from a Dungeons & Dragons set piece that I found on Pinterest and tried to replicate it in Minecraft. It has a nice little entryway with some matted carpets, a little study area, and then a painting. Then I also figured that this one could be some sort of librarian or some sort of wizard who might entertain people. So I have a little kitchenette on the side, and then every Minecrafter has to have a spiral staircase somewhere. You'll see off to the right, that's where the bed is in this building, but then also a balcony to overlook any guests you might have. Then tucked behind the staircase, I have this ladder that leads up to the second floor, where, like I stated, this individual might have some sort of brewing station or somewhere where he can create and concoct different potions or elixirs. And it's also the one that's functional for me, where I used to make my potions. And then as we continue up to the third floor, we reach into another magic system that's in Minecraft, and I have my enchanting table as well as a place to look out over the city, which I'll show here in a minute. But I also used it so I could fly up planning on getting an elytra at some point in this time, being able to fly up into this window so I can quickly enchant if I need to. Now we'll continue along back behind that and we'll come to my graveyard. It's crazy to think that these videos do take time for me because I want them to be in a high quality. But I've created this graveyard with tombstones and coarse dirt to be those places where people have been buried. But it's crazy to think that about a year ago, I was building this graveyard. I hadn't had the building completed yet, but I knew that I wanted to have something there, and it took some time to create it. But it's something that is a passion project for me. I enjoy Minecraft and enjoy trying to create these different environments and places. So if we look inside of this graveyard, we have a little desk office space here to the right, where I'd imagine people would come in and maybe reserve a plot of land or see the sexton or whoever lives here. Got a little consulting table and then a little booth in the back to maybe hold some religious ceremonies or something of that nature. We've got a little lectern to act as a podium. Then tucked away here on the side, we have a little side access stairway that goes up so you can look over all the different people who have come in and maybe are chatting, or maybe they need a step away to have a breath of fresh air, or maybe the passing of a loved one could be too hard on them. And really, that's one of the fun things about Minecraft, is it's this open world game where you can share stories and create these different worlds that you can share stories with. But I also made this interconnected by putting that door here, which leads to this spiral staircase. Now, the stained glass at the top is supposed to be resemblant of the outside world, grass on the ground, sky and clouds. And then again, I had to flex and have another spiral staircase. This one was a little more tricky because I tried incorporating stairs and slabs and full blocks and different things like that. But it's cool that you can see out through that stained glass window and then also have access to that upper deck here at that door. And then I also made sure to have proper lighting so I could move in and out and not have people spawning and coming at me. Now, as we get to the top of the spiral staircase, there's a few other thematic elements that I added into this build to kind of tell a story. We've got that water and lava dripping down. And then, of course, here we have finally moved in our friend Jeremy. If you'll notice that the front door was locked because I didn't want to have Jeremy escape. But he's just hanging out here, just kind of trying to get up into an upper room within this build. But I created a nice little home and space for him. Nice carpet with some chairs and seatings. And then I created this desk that he might need to study at, as well as a functional living space. So he's got his furnace for cooking, a bed, which is the bed for this one. And then this upper room has another study, library. And then I feel Jeremy might be a soft boy at heart. He has this area up in the upper decks where he can paint and release his creative energy. Now that will finish us at the graveyard, which looks really cool in this nice stormy weather. But if we jump over to our cabin in the woods, we'll make it start raining here to get some thematic elements here. This one, I created a spruce forest to hide and tuck away this little cabin in the woods. You can see me poking around in there. I have, maybe this person's a lumberjack, so there's wood fuel outside. We'll zoom inside and you can see that there is a fireplace where he maybe puts in these wood coals, where he can stay warm inside in those cold days. And then again, another functional kitchen. Have these curtains that you can kind of pull down here at the side to be able to section off the two sections of the basement to have two different rooms. And then of course, like I stated with all the other places, I do have a functional bed. If we jump on back to that original village, I also created this blacksmith where maybe the townspeople go to buy their tools. There's a little forging area outside with an anvil and a cauldron for quenching swords, as well as a fuel source, like extinguished campfires to refuel that lava. Inside I have all the workstations you could think of needing for creating and crafting, but it's also functional for my block storage for all my cobblestone, deep slate, and those kinds of things. Again, maybe a further forging and refining area here in the corner on the inside, and then a door leading out to that back patio. Over on that side we're looking at, up at the front, This is where the functional area of this build happens. Also thematic. Inside, I have a little station for where maybe this blacksmith works. Maybe they are finished up for the day and then they'll come upstairs where they have their little living arrangements. The villagers are nice and have left the doors wide open. But I have a functional bed, try to do a bunk bed workstation here with them, a little nightstand where they can keep their stuff. And then again, a little kitchenette with some storage and some fire aspects there. Whoa, villager head in the way. Got that table there for maybe a kitchen. I want to put some seats in there, but I'm going to build a farm next episode for that. And then they can come out and see all the people who've come in for the day. Now, going around to the side, I also created this build with a basement in it. So I have these doors. Again, the villagers left wide open. But it's functional because you come down and you go behind these other stairs and you have this extra crafting refining area. This place I use as my super smelter. I've got 9 furnaces that I can smelt up things pretty quickly, but then I've made a little story element here by showing this damaged pickaxe, which is really just a hoe. And then I have a created forged final pickaxe there on that board. And then I created this super awesome custom river and I had to make a bridge over the top of it. This might change because it is really cool thematically, but it's not really helpful for me to get to place 1 and 2. With that bridge, I created a lumber mill. I have different wood types and Minecraft has a lot of them. So I created a place to store them where when I create these amazing, awesome builds, I can come grab my wood. I made this little water wheel that I crafted up on the side that catches and spins and turns. And I made a little thematic element on the inside, which I'll get to in a second, but we have additional wood outside, and this is that element. We show the wood getting cut through the blade and being churned out into these half slabs or different things like that. I spent way too long looking at lumber mills in real life to create that, but it's really cool. I added some slat roofs on the ceiling and then a way to visually show what's in all these chests and barrels. So I have places for oak, for birch, for dark oak, spruce, and then I added in the back corner there the new mangrove as it came out. So it doesn't have any more expansive area, but in the future, if I need to, I can. Another cool thing about this is, again, I wanted it to be functional, so I made this 2-tiered and then created a secret way to come up top. So you go through this side door and you'll find these little ladders that run up into the 2nd floor. And as we come up, again, it's kind of functional for the person who maybe works here at the lumber mill. I've created a first little area where I have tucked away the little kitchenette, which is kind of one of the places I like to build. A little cutting board, water spigot with some water, and then a chest in the back there. Food chest, not a Minecraft chest where it can house all those different food items. I created a little lounge area outside, and then inside as we come through this door, we have this little wood paneled room with different pictures and things, maybe of themselves, maybe of somebody else, and then his big, large bed. I created the carpets to make the change of rooms feel a lot more apparent on this one because I wanted to leave the doors wide open with it. And we'll go back outside and we'll look at that section that I showed, a little area to maybe play cards or maybe hang out. And then I like to put windows, especially with this custom river that I made. I made in this episode. It was something that started at the beginning of the Minecraft world and I expanded on it. So I thought it was really cool and I wanted to show it off, as well as you can peek into the villagers, which we'll show in a second. And then I created this section for a specific episode entitled The End. So if you want to see what this little reading nook is, you can go check out that video. This next building is my moss farm, which was modeled after something on Instagram, as well as, if you go back to the first episode, modeled after my clock tower. It houses this moss farm that I use, which, if you notice from my videos, has changed because my old one wasn't as functional as I'd like. So underneath houses that moss farm, and then up here on the side slats, I again wanted to create a place to live and have that functionality of having a bed in every single building. So I created this side railing to come up, which is a thing that I'm realizing I use a lot more. So maybe we can look to switch that up in the future. But I wanted to create this one using the moss everywhere. So I'm going to put a spore blossom up at the top to have that environment. Got the moss carpets growing, azalea bushes everywhere because I like the little pop of the flower. I like these paintings because it looks like the man's holding seeds. And again, I know this one's a fire, but it kind of looks like seeds if you can use your imagination. And then I have this really lush bed with some storage on the sides, and then a little bed with a tiny little chest stuck up top. Next, we have our villagers. This is something I'm gonna flush out and complete as we begin to move on, because villager mechanics are changing. And if this is going to be a long-term world, I don't necessarily want to have those changes. So I need to put in the work right now in order to prepare for the future. We have a giant villager head. We've got our fun paintings hanging around and our different villagers working at their different workstations. I've got these top ones, which are sort of more of the utility type. I've got a way to buy glass from the villagers underneath, trade them with the cartographer to get more emeralds. And then we've got all the different villagers you can think of, mending, breaking 3, different things like that. So I have them all listed up top. And I do want to go in and flesh these out so that way I don't have to go and run and grab jungler villagers or different things like that. And so, of course, I have a villager breeder tucked behind that villager head, where these 2 villagers will share their food and potatoes. They'll breed, and then the trapdoors trick the baby villager into falling down beneath, where I can catch them. Unfortunately, one of the villagers has turned and has now become my turning villager. I'll take them through there, cure them to get those lower trades, and then I'll eventually boat them out into this double levered room, which just breaks right back out to where all the villagers are. Now that we've looked at some of the city and parts there, we'll look at the last few builds that I've done, which is this inn and the floating islands. Now, I won't spend too much time on these because I built them in the most recent video. But if you take the path from the moss farm here, you come across this landscape that I've created, and I'm going to put a bridge in here eventually. But as you cross over the river, you'll get into the little island that is part of this inn. So we have the front here, floated through a tree there. You have the front of the inn here where you'll be able to kind of go inside. And to me, it kind of looks a little bit like a penguin. I'm not sure why, but I like it. I used mushroom blocks on the side, which is something very popular in the YouTube scene right now, to make that wall have some sort of depth to it. But if we come inside, the first level of this build is a tavern. It's a tavern, then an inn, and then a viewing area. So we've got some different tables and chairs here, some kegs on tap up above, and pots that I've used to pretend to be cups that I can fill with ale and different things like that. Now, as we come behind the counter here, you can obviously reach up and fill up mugs of ale and things like that. You've also got water to wash down your cups with the cauldrons. And I eventually want to make a cellar over here, but if you come over and we take a look, it's unfinished currently. But that's a project I'm looking to do hopefully in the future sometime. Now, like I said, as we come upstairs, the second floor of this building is sort of the inn area of the inn. We've got several different rooms that maybe wandering travelers or people can come in and enjoy. And I've labeled each room with a number, assuming the story is that the innkeeper has 5 different keys that he'll lend out to wandering travelers. This first one, I kind of went for a little Cosmo and Wanda inspired. It's not pink though, but a blue and green. Maybe a few separate beds for maybe 2 buddies who are wandering together. Then room 2 is the next one here behind the birch door. Inside of it, I created an environment that was more so for your studious, maybe the mage that's traveling. He has a desk, a book, and a quill, which is maybe the main focal point, very well lit for him to do some studying. And across the hall, we have rooms 3, 4, and 5. Room 3 is one that I have here on the sides, maybe a change of sheets. Maybe that's for the person to use who comes to the inn. Maybe it's not. I'm going to eventually turn this armor stand into like a sword bin or barrel that holds weapons or things. And then over as we come into room number 4, door number 4. This one I've kind of pretended that it's sort of like the sweetheart's suite, I guess. You've got one bed, a smaller room for maybe 2 people to spend the night being close by, or some wealthy individual to have the room all to themselves. And then as we scoot down into room 5, this one is sort of the most fancier room. You can peek inside through the window. We've got some grays and some white, some quartz, which with my shaders and texture pack, it does look very shiny and pristine. I also tried to copy that blue because I really like the amethysts that I used for the walls, especially on this floor and with that room. It's something that pops and it's a very noisy texture, but it was something I was interested in. And then the roof itself actually has that gradient across the entire thing, which is visible when you get up here to this second floor. Now, as we continue lastly upstairs, this is sort of the viewing area for this build. Now, behind the inn, we have this sort of zen or secret garden area where I imagine some of the villagers might keep secret or maybe not tell everybody about. But the astute observer here in the back will notice 2 different holes, one to go down and one to come up. And I'll show you what that is here in just a moment. I imagine that there's some gardener who likes to keep his hedges here very pristine. Very nice to be with. Now, my rendering software doesn't render the beacon super well until it blasts you in the face here in just a second. But I do have that beacon going all the way down to bedrock. And I imagine that the power of this beacon that's all the way down there is what leads to the floating islands that are up above. So maybe there's a little element of danger, but also zen here in this garden. Now we'll go look in the back. Oh, that chair needs to be fixed, which I have gone in and fixed, but we'll take a look at what's down beneath the surface of this zen garden. As you fall down into this pit, you'll find a lot of redstone that goes back and forth to keep something on timer, and that is my gunpowder farm. We have this bubble elevator for me to get back up and down as I so choose, and so I can quickly run down here, run around that little almost spiral staircase, and come down beneath where I can pick up all the gunpowder that I might need, and quickly use that crafting table as well to craft up any rockets that I might want. And how this farm works is it's a simple creeper farm design. The height is only like 1.8 blocks tall, and the only thing that can spawn in that is creepers. I'm not close enough in this clip, so no creepers are spawning, but when they do, the timer is set to trigger that water to be able to push all of those creepers around so they can fall off into the edges and fall down into the soul campfires where they'll take fall damage, but then also take burning damage as well. Didn't want to light up the bottom platform, so I added extra water to push all and any creepers into those corners where I've set up hoppers to collect all of the drops. And of course, you can't have any good creeper farm, any good rocket farm without paper. So I have a few different sugarcane farms here, just your basic design with an observer that watches for that sugarcane to grow, and then it'll push it, and then that'll cause it to break and fall into those blocks, and you can use a hopper minecart down underneath to collect up any and all different drops that are picked up. And again, I am not close enough in this for that minecart to be rendered, but that's how I get my rockets. So now we've taken a look down here, we'll go up to those floating islands, and like I said, this is what I built last episode, so I won't spend too much time on it. But this first island, I have my little astute, studious person or statue. I imagine he's reading this book and looking down, and maybe pondering as he's sitting up on this island. But as you can see, I'm quite a ways up because the height that is up here to this guy is perfectly that 128 blocks to prevent spawnings from other areas, to hopefully get more spawns for creepers down below. So underneath him, I have a little chamber where I can hang out and get those creeper spawns. Now for island number 2, I said I would do it in episode 10, and I did. I spent a long time pushing that villager up to this floating island. I imagine maybe he's a world traveler, so we have some weird stands for maybe some pots or plants, and then he's got his different crops that he grows for food maybe, or maybe to trade with different individuals. And we've got some moss growing on the rooftop, a chimney with some smoke billowing out, and he's maybe a little lost and might need some help getting pushed into that room. However, this one's maybe not the most finished. We do have that little kitchenette, but no bed, as you can tell. And then, like I said, he does have this little bridge where he can move back and forth from his little crops where he can harvest his food. And lastly, we have the big island. I was able to finish that waterfall so it doesn't run all the way down to the bottom. It sort of turns into mist as it falls down. But I think it's fitting that this is my most recent build because it's probably one of the ones that I'm most happy about. We have this water flowing down, and I have this magical fountain that spews water, and it changes color as it does so. We have a little lily pad bridge that leads to this little campsite, a nice little custom tree that hangs out on top of my floating island, and then this almost Zen-inspired house as well. All the white walls, different plants, and some hanging decorations from the roof. Very lush and studious there. We've got a bookshelf, and then behind me right here at the bookshelf we have this little reading nook where you can sit in and look out over the city and see the different individuals. And then out back, I'm not sure what I'm going to do here. Possibly add some flowers, or maybe a little garden, maybe a little chair and some awning umbrellas. But that concludes our world tour. And like I said, that will conclude our world tour. We got to look at a lot of cool builds that I have had done so far here in my Minecraft world. But I'm only going to grow from here. It's been fun to have these 10 videos to work through and problem solve and build different things. So I'm excited for what the future holds for me in this Minecraft world and be able to create new things. Next episode, I'm looking to make stuff a lot more industrial, because I figured from here on out, if I want to make big builds, I'll just need to have a lot more resources to build them with. So that is going to do it for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. Have a splendid day, and we'll catch ya on the next episode of Who's Who. Kind of go inside. This kind of looks like some